You've tuned into InvisiYouth Chat Sessions, a video podcast series. Our episode starts right now. Here's your host, Dominique Vale.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the InvisiYouth Chat Sessions, where you can check in for your dose of stigma-breaking, humor-filling, motivation-loving, life hacks, and empowering tips for all of the medically adultish people in life. I'm Dominique Vale, founder of InvisiYouth Charity, host of the InvisiYouth Chat Sessions, and today is Season 5, Episode 62, and I'm super excited because today's guest we might have found from TikTok, but she is a multi-hyphenated guru right now of a boss lady, and we are going to list off all of the reasons why, and she's only 21. You're going to be just as impressed as I was. It is disability advocate, author, dancer, TikToker, and model Sarah Todd Hammer. Now, as a child, Sarah Todd ended up developing health issues, which were initially diagnosed as transverse myelitis, but then correctly diagnosed as acute flaccid myelitis, which is a neuroimmunological disorder that caused by a viral attack on the spinal cord. And 2 months after being in hospital and regaining the ability to walk and doing intensive physical therapy, Sarah Todd still deals with some partial paralysis in her arms and hands, but she knew, being a young person, she wanted to not only go back to other hobbies she still did as a young kid, but wanted to find all these new avenues to build some positivity and joy and enjoy so many new things. And my gosh, did Sarah Todd do that. I'm going to list off just a few of her resume here. She really was building advocacy in the disability community as she has gotten older. She's published books, has modeled for brands like Zappos Adapted, started her own YouTube channel and TikTok, and now has thousands of followers on both platforms. Literally, her YouTube channel has over 1.3 million views, and some of her TikToks reach over 100K in views. It's incredibly impressive, guys. Now, Sarah Todd is in university, double majoring in communications and psychology, and still find times to use her virtual platforms to advocate about the young adult disability experience. You will learn later in our episode why we love her on TikTok so much. And we are so thrilled to be getting some amazing advice and empowerment from Sarah Todd today. So Sarah, Sarah Todd, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Dominique. I am so excited to be chatting with you today.
You might have been one of the first guests to actually use the chat part of our podcast name saying in your intro. So I appreciate it.
I love it.
And as always, guys, before we jump into our 4 segments, I always encourage you, while you're listening or watching on YouTube for the next hour, make sure you click that subscribe button and click that follow or give a thumbs up or a quick review. It definitely helps us. And you have quite a few minutes of listening or watching Sarah Todd and I to be able to do that. So we'll check in again at the end of the podcast to see if you've done it. And now we'll go into our first segment, Medically Adultish Guidebook.
Medically Adultish Guidebook.
So often when you are a young person with chronic illness or disability, you're trying to figure out who you are as a person, and then having a diagnosis can just add a whole other layer on top of it. So we are going to build you lots of guidebooks with InvisiYouth, and today's guidebook is going to be all about making that schooling experience top-notch, elite-level fun for you. And we're going to get all of those different tips, ideas, and ways to empower yourself with Sarah Todd today on the university journey. So I know we'll talk about TikTok later in the podcast more, but for anyone who's been on your TikTok, they know that talking about your university experience and schooling experience and adaptations you found has been such a prime source of topics and subjects for you. So was it more about sharing your experiences you were going through you wanted, or did you like giving advice and learning advice? What was sort of your lead of wanting to lean with all of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was honestly a little bit of both. I saw value in sharing my experiences at college with adaptations and just going to college as a disabled student, because I realized that that is not a topic that is commonly discussed at all, whether it's on social media, in person, or online anywhere. So I thought it would be really valuable to share those things in case someone would benefit from that. And I quickly found that it really helped a lot of people. But I also do just like to share what I'm doing in my life with my followers, because that helps build a connection. And so I wanted to keep my followers updated on what I was doing. But the main piece there was the education so that I could help other people.
Yeah, and I love that because the way you share everything on TikTok really is it's very conversational, and that makes people feel like they're engaged in your life, kind of like a vlogger would give to them, but also you feel at the end of it, I've been out of university for almost 8 years now, and I always go, oh my God, if I had Sarah Todd's videos, would have made my dorm room so much more accessible than it
Yeah,
was.
I mean, it really is not talked about enough. When I was starting my college search, I tried to look for some resources and really didn't find anything. And I think it's nice to have this casual resource of just seeing someone on TikTok, like doing college as a disabled student. I think it is just really nice for people to see that it's possible, because someone has done it. So that was what was really important to me.
Yeah, and for you, when people always will tell you their immediate sort of piece of advice is, oh, well, when you look at universities, look for disability services and look what that service is. But for you, were there additional tips that you would give if somebody's starting the university process of looking for schools, and if they're looking at what is available for services, what were things that you were kind of looking for, or who you were talking to kind of see if the school wasn't only a good fit, but would they be able to assist you the best?
Mhm. So I always tell people to actually decide what type of school they want and make their list of favorites and pick their school based on the school they want, like not even thinking about disability, which is not always possible in terms of if you think about like just how the campus is built. Some campuses are super inaccessible just because they're built on a hill, or like maybe it snows a lot and that it can be really inaccessible for people. So that's not always possible to do. But if it is possible, I think it is a good thing to do because, at least in the US, I know a lot about like the ADA and what my rights are. And I knew that I could pick a school and then go to the disability office and tell them what I needed and basically like convince them, like, yes, you have to do these things for me. And that does take a lot of fighting, if you choose a school not based on how good their disability office is, because maybe they aren't that great, but knowing your rights is helpful with that whole ordeal, because if you know what a school is required to do for you, you can talk to them about that, and it just might take a lot of fighting, but knowing your rights is really important. So that's kind of what I tell people to do from there. I try to steer the conversation away from picking solely based on disability needs, because honestly, no school is perfect at that anyway. You're gonna basically have to fight for your disability needs any school you go to. So you might as well pick a school that you really like instead of just trying to pick based off disability, because it's not going to be perfect anywhere, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's so true. Even obviously, if you haven't picked up on Sarah Todd and I having American accents, we have American university experiences. But in general, even internationally, it is really, like you said, ranking the schools you're interested in first and foremost, and then kind of adding that as what you're looking at. And maybe some of the schools that aren't number 1 and 2 on your list have a lot of phenomenal things otherwise, and you can kind of, it's just creating pros and cons. There might be some places that have a lot more things that are enjoyable to you, on other parts of it, like a campus the school I went to was nicknamed the Hill for a reason. So having needing to use a cane and having nerve damage, the Hill was not always the best physical place for me to go to classes. But
Right.
like you said, it was that, and I always remember one of my doctors saying to me, make sure you get more letters from your doctors, if you go to services to get accommodations, he goes, make sure your doctor letters from me and your others are as broad as possible so that you can get as many accommodations that you can choose from as possible. So I always will suggest that to people when you bring letters, not letters of recommendation, if you will, but nonetheless, they're recommending that you have accommodations, but always encourage your doctors to make them quite broad, because for me, it was my first year versus my next 3. It was night and day that I kind of had a whole shopping cart of things I could pick from. And you and I both know, and anyone listening or watching knows, that a lot of times chronic illness or disability, it's not the same every day. What you might need as an accommodation on a Monday, Tuesday might not be what you need on that Friday. And to have those options available to you is really, really helpful.
Yes, absolutely. I think that was really great advice and something that people should think about when looking at accommodations for themselves.
And even kind of going off of that, naturally, when you're in the university experience, if you are living in a dorm, especially that first year, that becomes somewhat of a requirement before you can maybe even look into off-campus housing, if that's an option for you. But dorms are not always built to be very accessible. You know that, I know that.
Right.
So for you, are there things that you say, these are my 2 things that I have either brought into my dorm or that I use in my dorm to make it more accessible for me?
Mm-hmm. So I have a lot of housing accommodations, and when I was making my list, I wrote everything that I need on there, wondering if they would actually do some of it, but my occupational therapist helped me write this, and she was like, let's just put it all on there and see what they say. And thankfully, my college was great and they did everything that I asked for. And so mostly my housing accommodations through the college are what helped me live independently in my dorm room. And one of the most unique things is my shower accommodations. So I requested a room with a private bathroom. So I've had that every year so far. And within that bathroom, I needed accommodations in the shower. I'm unable to reach my hair without putting my right elbow up on a surface that's higher that allows me to reach. So I gave them the measurements of where I would need a shelf, and they put a little niche shelf in my shower so that I can put my elbow on it. And they also put a shelf below that one that I can put soap dispensers on, because that's what I use to get my body wash and shampoo out. I have someone put my body wash and shampoo in my soap dispensers, and then they sit on that shelf, and then I'm able to take a shower. They did all of that. They put those shelves in there. They even put a rain shower head in the shower for me, because it's easier to get my shampoo out of my hair since I can't scrub. Mm-hmm. They put the rain shower head in there for me that I requested. So my shower is absolutely incredible. Everyone loves it. They've done a ton to it. They even put a little touchpad with buttons on there, which is what I have at home. They put that same thing on there so I don't have to worry about a control for turning it on and off or adjusting the temperature. So that's a really cool example of something that they did. And another thing that's really neat is they have adjusted the room temperature for me. So I have impaired body temperature regulation due to having a spinal cord injury. So they put in, I think they more so just adjusted the range of temperatures that my control can go to in the room. So I'm not freezing and I'm not super hot. So those are 2 huge things for me that were pretty unique that I wasn't sure if they would do, and they did, which was amazing.
Oh my God. I'm just thinking of my shower experience, because I lived in a very old house, which was because I needed a single living as well to do physical therapy in my room. And so I bartered between a single room and then not having an elevator. So I always encourage, if you if you could get an elevator, oh man, that was a long few years of I would always joke, I would just pretend that I dropped something on the ground. Sometimes I would just take a little seat and sit on the stairs while I was waiting to climb up, and other girls would be coming up and down the stairs in the house, and I'd be like, hey, how you doing?
That sounds so stressful.
Be like, I dropped my phone, it's fine. And I'm still sitting there 2 minutes later, just waiting for my heart to regulate. But it is you being able to list out options. For me, the biggest thing, I always joked my phrase, instead of BYOB, I said BYOD. If you can bring your own desk chair, it is because you're in there and you're working, and the desk chairs that you'll get in a university are not great at all.
Yeah.
And to be sitting, and most people know I have nerve damage as well, for me to be in a chair that had armrests that I could rest my arm on, that was more cushioned than the wooden chairs they gave, was so helpful. And because even if you go to a library, you're still getting the same kind of bad chairs there as well. So I always tell people, if you're going to invest in something, bring your own desk chair. I think I used their chair as something else to like prop up a space heater on, and I decorated it so it looked like furniture. But like you said, it's different thinking of things that you use in your own home, and then seeing, like you said, it's shocking that like your university would do all of those things for a shower that you would need, but if you wouldn't know unless you ask, which is so true, because even if they gave you one of those three things, that would have been phenomenal for you as well.
Yes, yeah, I was like, I don't have anything to lose by asking, so I asked and they delivered, which was amazing.
Yeah, and even kind of the last thing I was going to ask here is a big thing when it comes to universities and having accommodations is your professors, and having to mention your accommodations to professors, and then not only the initial hurdle of mentioning it to them, but then having to go and use them during your course. And sometimes, I know from my experience as well, the ones who sometimes even seem the most accessible and inclusive of doing everything you would need, sometimes it doesn't work out all the months you're with them. So for you, what are tips you've used of bringing up your accommodations or needs to professors, and especially in those moments where you're getting kind of that pushback that they aren't doing what is written that you need?
Yeah, I actually posted about this on TikTok the other day, so this is perfect. I have been quite lucky in that I've not had any pushback from professors while I've been at college, which is super rare.
I'm gonna knock on wood for you, Sarah Todd.
Yeah, I know, right? I've had professors who maybe didn't understand as well as others, but have never been rude about it or anything. And it was purely them just like not understanding something. And once it's been explained, then they're good. So what I usually do is I get my academic accommodations settled every semester with the disability office, and then they forward those to my professors. And so once that list has been sent out, I send it to them again and I say, I just wanted to send you my list of accommodations, which is below. And then I inform them that I'm unable to raise my hand very high, so they might have to watch out for me a bit more. And then I tell them, thank you for understanding my accommodations. And in my video I made the other day, I said that I used to say, if you have any questions, let me know. And I started taking that out because I don't like to open up the opportunity for them to question anything or give me a hard time. I just kind of go in under the assumption that they're going to be understanding with that statement. So that's how I've done that. And last year I was taking a dance class, and so the professor did ask to meet with me first, and I was like, okay, yes, for this, let's meet, because that one was a more active class and so different circumstances. But generally, if a professor says, let's set up a time to meet before, I usually reply and I'm like, oh, I don't think that's necessary. But if I'm finding that things aren't working, I'll be sure to let you know, because I want to advocate for myself, but I don't want to spend a whole bunch of my time on it, because as disabled people, we already have to spend way more time doing that. So I want to get what I need to get done, but without spending too much time like having these conversations that might not be necessary.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of putting it too, is when there are certain types of courses that might be more lecture based and you're in a room of one of 90 students, you might feel like, oh, I'm probably going to fall into the mold of all these students right away. This is a type of professor I might want to talk to in the beginning, so they remember me, they remember the accommodations, they put it together. Or like you with your dance course, it would make the most sense. I had professors right out of the beginning who were very confused by my accommodations, or accidentally outed me in front of my first class as a freshman, which was because with having an invisible illness, like many people know, they get the list on my school, they got the list of students who had accommodations so they could reference each of the individual ones that they had. And when my name came up in class and I rose my hand and said, "Oh, Dominique's here," they immediately were very confused and referenced that because I looked healthy that day. And they knew I had a list of very interesting types of accommodations I needed to my health. And so when I'm very private, a lot of my friends didn't know about my health issues. So when I got called out very quickly my first year, I then said, I'm going to nip this in the butt. And I did the opposite of you, Sarah Todd. I told every professor right in the beginning, I said, I have a 5 to 10 minute window to talk to you prior to classes starting, and I can explain it to you so that you don't look confused at all when I come into the class. And so I had almost every professor meet with me prior to them seeing me in class so that I could, from a privacy standpoint, they never had to question it in front of anyone. So I could, on my end, I felt like I was protecting my health privacy. And so
that makes sense.
And from that point forward, that worked for me. But I think it's nice that we both did it 2 different ways, and it made both of our university experiences so well that you can try it Sarah Todd's way, you can try it my way, you can try it in the middle, and it works out so well because me telling them everything in the beginning privately worked out for me getting everything I needed. But then on your end, making your professors be independent, that they have to look at everything, they need to show up for you, and that takes less of the work off on your plate that you already have. That makes everything for your courses so much easier. So I think that's nice. You can kind of try different options and see what works for you.
Yeah, and I will say I go to a very small college, so we're just undergrad too, so no grad students, and then our class sizes are about like 500 students per class in terms of like 500 first years. So our actual courses, if I'm in like even a Psych 101 course, that's a huge introductory course, the maximum size for that is like 32 students at my college. Oh, wow. And so that actually really helps because the professors can get to know you way more easily. And so they'll be thinking about it more, and it's not as stressful for them because they actually know everyone's names. So it's easier for them to remember. And so I think that's been a huge benefit of going to a small college for me.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I was middle-ish size. I had probably double or a little double and a half of yours. So I definitely, that is truly a good point to make as well. And I'm like I was going to try to make a cool segue out of what you said, Sarah Todd, to our commercial, but lo and behold, as most of our listeners know, I'm not good at that. So we're going to go straight into it. And as you guys know, this is something I loved doing when I was at my university, which was wearing different things of supporting nonprofits. And I loved being able to do that. A lot of the clubs I was in were supporting and fundraising for charities. So what we have at InvisiYouth Charity Shop, you'll see a graphic pop up next to me, is we have our Subtle Activist color block bracelets. I'm wearing a couple of them now. As you can see, they've been subtly advocating for chronically ill and disabled young adults while Sarah Todd and I have been talking. And they are handmade by our volunteers with chronic illness and disability. They're only $4. 100% of every sale goes towards helping fund our free programs and resources every month. And you get free global shipping that we're doing at the start of the year. So if you go to our Etsy page, you can buy those for yourself, for someone you know and care about, and do some subtle activism. As we said, you can be the Starbucks cup in the background of the Game of Thrones scene that wasn't supposed to be there. That causes a lot of conversation. So if you want to support our shop, you can go do that. The link is in the description and the show notes. And now something else you might want to do is go and search that on Google to figure out where to find it. And you can do that with our next segment called Top Search.
Top Search. You got the Top Search.
So often we are told, or we tell people to Google it when they ask questions about our chronic illness or disability. And we know that autofill on Google sometimes does provide some humorous or at times a little bit ignorant of answers in that autofill. So we today are going to be throwing out some top questions to Sarah Todd about building up our personal and social confidence for Gen Zers. And Sarah Todd's going to be our Google for today. So Sarah's like, oh, Sarah Todd's like, oh no, I'm going to be Google right now.
I'm
so
excited.
So for us, we know it's so important of building your self-confidence as a young person. And when you add that layer on of finding your own identity when you have a chronic illness or disability, it can sometimes feel a bit like a juggling act, or you're building your confidence on top of people not understanding your own journey you're going through. So for you, what do you think are kind of the main aspects that can impact someone's self-confidence when they're living with a chronic illness or disability at that young adult age?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for me, I became disabled when I was 8 years old. So that was a little bit of a difficult age, because at that age, I was kind of starting to get to the stage at school where at recess, instead of playing, my friends and I wanted to just talk. And so that's kind of a difficult stage to have that happen. But it was also a little bit of an easier stage in terms of kids are just so resilient. And so I had that resiliency as an 8-year-old to keep up with my confidence. But I think socially, that is the most difficult aspect of being disabled in terms of it impacting self-confidence. And also sometimes being disabled or having health issues can impact the way our bodies look and our appearances, and sometimes our personalities, if we're having a bad day, or like in terms of like our health is bad that day, or if we had a bad day from having to advocate for ourselves too much in the disability office and it impacts our mood. I think all of those things can impact self-confidence, but I think what's actually been helpful for me in terms of my self-confidence and disability is, since my disability has affected the way my body looks, because my arms and hands are very atrophied, they're very skinny. I have scars on my body from surgeries, like pretty significant scars as well. I feel like since I just kind of had to accept those things because I couldn't change them, it's made me a more confident person, because I'm not harping on how I look in any other way. And I actually have grown to like really like those differences about me, especially the scars, because I think it's kind of cool to have a story associated with scars. So kind of a long tangential answer, but I just think, yeah, our self-confidence can be impacted in all those ways. But I think as that happens in the future, it can actually make our confidence even stronger.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it like you said, it's important to things that would naturally make you self-conscious. You intentionally put the confidence into those things for yourself, because then that really does mirror into, if somebody's going to look or ask questions, your immediate reaction just on instinct is a confident answer. And that really does help. We'll always say what is mainly the issue is it's like a third person self-consciousness. It's you're worried about people that might have an opinion that aren't directly stating the opinion to you. It's sort of the third person bubble around you and their views of you, and then that then impacts how you're going to then lead every day. So if you push that forward for yourself of, no, this makes me feel let me find something about that makes me feel uncomfortable that I can then feel confident and comfortable about it.
Exactly.
It's a really nice way of looking at it. And I think another thing too is something I experienced, because I got injured when I was almost 16 as well. So I was in that mid-teenage years of everything. I was very much, for me, trying to avoid missing all of the experiences that I knew my friends were doing, because I knew I wasn't able to go to these different events or able to do these different things. So for you, what were those moments that you might have experienced, or how do you kind of avoid feeling like you're missing out and it's your health and you kind of put that blame or guilt on yourself from it?
Yeah, I think when I was younger, I experienced that more because, like I said, I was at the age where I started wanting to like talk at recess instead of play. And like when I first became disabled, I had a full-time aide with me for fourth, fifth, and sixth grade. And she was with me at recess. And so I was never without someone attached at my hip. And that was frustrating in terms of connecting with my friends. And it was hard because I had missed third grade from being disabled. I'd done homeschool so I could focus on physical therapy and recovery. And so when I came back, I think I expected everything to be the same, but it wasn't. Like my friends were still my friends, but things were different. We were growing up a little bit. And so that was a difficult adjustment. And there were times where I wasn't invited to things, and people would straight up tell me, oh, well, you wouldn't be able to do it, so we didn't invite you. Or there were times I was invited, and I chose not to go, but mostly because it was like ice skating or bowling. And now I would go, I think, because I've developed more confidence in that way of being like, I'm just going. But when I was younger, that was difficult. Now I really don't feel excluded socially, honestly. At college, my friends and I, we go to everything together. We go to parties, we go out to eat. And I'm fortunate that I'm able to make these things work for me, because I know partying is not easy if you're disabled. Like, that's not a super accessible activity, but thankfully my friends always watch out for me and we have fun and we're able to go. So I really am fortunate in that I'm able to fully participate. And I think a lot of that has to do with my friends always being like, well, of course, like, you're coming with us. Like, my friends want to make things work for me.
I actually really, what I loved so much about your answer, Sarah Todd, was talking about how when you were, and was your difference in how when you were with friends, you were going, I wish I had gone to those different hangouts or invites, even if I knew I couldn't do those things, even just going. But that also, like you said, requires a confidence level you have now. Of back then, you would have been feeling like you were even still missing out because you weren't doing the same things they were. But now you really kind of have owned your own confidence. And I feel like by doing that, in extension, your friends are also the same way. They're kind of mirroring that. They know they're comfortable to ask you to do things they might physically know you might not be able to do, but they just know you'll be in the driver's seat of telling them, yes, I can do this, no, I can't. And finding a way of, if you know even going wouldn't be an option, you would feel comfortable to say no. And I think that's really important in confidence, is being able to tell the people around you, if you feel comfortable giving the why of, I wouldn't be able to do that because of this, that sometimes will encourage the social network you have around you to feel comfortable going, okay, maybe I'll maybe next time, or doing those things. And I think that's really, really important, because it's reminding people that everyone's unique. It's just our uniqueness sometimes deals with more of a health issue versus just other portions of your personality is unique. And that's really important for people to remember as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm so thankful that I'm able to socialize a ton. And I feel like it's also just kind of like every weekend, it's kind of like a known thing. My friends and I are like doing certain things and they don't even have to ask. And then once we're there, like if we're at a party, like my friends will like dance with me, hold both my arms for me. Like, it's so fun. And I also have another really close friend who's disabled and she goes out with us a lot, but she uses a walker. And so she's different from me, but with her too, like with all of us, like, it's just known, like, we're going and we're making it work. And I love that about my friend group.
No, and I love that too. And I was going to say, to end this segment, if you had like one tip on building confidence in your full self, chronic illness, disability, and all, what's that piece of advice you would give?
Ooh, that is a difficult question. I guess my main piece of advice would be to just give yourself time and grace with it, because for me in the beginning, it was really difficult. And as an 8-year-old, I didn't really understand why it was difficult. I just knew that I was going through a hard time mentally. But if you give yourself time, I feel like that helps. And not dwelling on things too much, but if you ever do have a feeling of maybe like feeling down about something disability related or confidence related, letting yourself have the feeling and have the thought, but not dwelling on it, like letting yourself experience those emotions, just making sure that it doesn't take too much of a toll on yourself. That's something I try to practice today. If for some reason I have some negative thought that's disability related, which is typically most often related to like my clothes not fitting me super well because my body is just so small, like mostly due to my disability, that can kind of negatively affect my mood. And I let it, but I don't let it ruin my day. I go about my day and make sure that I'm not dwelling on things too much. So
No, I think
that's my main
yeah,
piece of
yeah,
advice.
that's a good point to make, because I think going off of that, kind of to end the segment, would, for me, it is really, like you mentioned, is those feelings don't last permanently if you don't let them last, if you try to
Mhm.
change the way that feels. And also, if it's, for what I'll always say is, with self-confidence, if other people's opinions or their negativity or their jokes are impacting you, it's always reminding you that those people are going to be different from your teens into your 20s and your 30s. You can shop for friends and partners and the people you work with. It is like shopping. So some people, it just doesn't. I always say I have one friend from my high school years, and I have a couple from my university years, and a lot of my friends came in my later 20s when I was doing work with InvisiYouth and I was in the work that I enjoyed. So I always reminded myself of that in my high school and university years, was these people might just not be a good fit for me. They might not,
Mhm.
they're not going to be able, like you said, to go to the parties and just fill in what I need with my health. It might not work, and that's okay. It stings, but it's okay. And like, similarly to what you said, if you keep that in mind, that it's temporary and not permanent, it really helps your confidence kind of continue to strengthen as time goes on.
Exactly. Yes, you said it well.
Good. I love that. And even before we go into our intermission and our second
Mhm.
half of the show, I just wanted to remind all of you guys, and thank you for tuning in and watching InvisiYouth Chat Sessions or listening, that this is part of our virtual programming at InvisiYouth Charity. And because of that, we always do drop our donate link below, because 100% of all donations go towards funding our free programs and resources, like the InvisiYouth Chat Sessions and all of our other resources we provide every month that help empower teens and young adults with chronic illness and disability around the world to thrive in their daily life. So if you're able to donate, that link is below for you to see. It's in the description and the show notes. And every single cent really does make an impact. It helps keeps our lights on and have amazing guests like Sarah Todd on the show. So we really appreciate it. And now we know it's our favorite time of the show, everybody. It's So That One Time.
So that one time.
So that one time is when I get to sit back, drink my coffee, and let our guests tell us a life story. So Sarah Todd, the mic is officially all yours.
Yes. So I was thinking about what I wanted to say for this, and I feel like I have more of a broad topic to discuss and then a few examples within that are kind of fun. So one idea that I learned about at college, my sophomore year, in a disability course I took, it was called Disability in Literature and Art. It was super interesting course. It was an English course, but we mostly looked at like short stories. We read a few books. We looked at art pieces, and we talked about how disability was portrayed within them. We learned all about like common disability topics, disability justice as a whole. It's an amazing course. And one thing we learned in that course was the topic of access intimacy, which I don't see discussed very often. So I wanted to share it here. So we learned basically that access intimacy is this idea where you can create an environment or space where everyone is thinking about each other's access needs and trying to form a space where people feel comfortable asking for access needs to be met. But the ideal thing would be that they don't even have to ask, because everyone's already kind of thinking about those things. And it's just kind of just this general idea of like empathy surrounding access and disability, and like how we can grow closer to each other through disability experiences, through thinking about access. And I love this concept. I think it's brilliant. And once you learn about it, you notice it more. And so I've started to notice this within my friendships. And we've had like some funny examples, like if I travel and I'm staying in a hotel, I need help taking a shower because I don't have my accommodations with me. And my friend Jen, she's 4 years older than me. She's also disabled, and we met because of our disabilities when we were 10 and 14. She has like helped me shower before when we've been together, like at my house, before I had my adaptations at my house, or we're away together. And we always joke about that being something that's like normal for disabled friends, but not normal for other people. But that's just kind of like an access, like intimacy moment. And then one thing that my roommate Kelly and I have joked about a lot with access intimacy is I wear a back brace every day, and I'm able to put it on independently, but I'm unable to take it off independently because it's really tight and really does require two hands that are also strong to take it off. So she helps me take it off every evening before bed. And one time last year, we were getting ready to go out. So I don't wear it when I go out. So she was helping me take it off, and we were like, access intimacy while she was pulling it off of me. And it was just really funny, like bonding moment kind of thing. And I don't know, I just think that's kind of a broad topic, not like one single story, but my friends and I always like to talk about that. And it can be between you and a non-disabled friend, or you and a disabled friend. And it just really is a great way to capture the empathy and understanding that comes with being friends with someone who's disabled.
I love it, because I've never actually heard that described that way.
Mm-hmm.
So even 7 years running InvisiYouth, you still learn things, everybody.
Yes.
Sarah Todd, it was a great lesson. I love that. Thank you so much.
Yes.
And there's a perfect segue, because we're going to go into our final segment and a topic that most of our volunteers know, I know nothing about. We're going to talk about TikTok, guys. You've been waiting since the start of this podcast about it. We're going into teeniatric way of life.
Teeniatric way of life.
We know one of the biggest things with our Gen Z and millennials is talking about TikTok. It's something that so many people use professionally and socially. And we know that Sarah Todd is a pro. We're calling her a TikTok guru because she is for us today. And so we're going to not only get advice and insider secrets, but we're going to give you guys a peek at how to then make your TikTok experience even more fun and entertaining for you. So first thing I was going to really ask was, I know I've mentioned that you're super popular on TikTok. I have had so many of your videos DM'd to us on Instagram of people being like, when are you going to talk about this? So I know for us, was there a certain TikTok that you think of that would either describe your brand as a whole, or one that you remember people really, really resonating super well with?
Mm-hmm. I think mainly and most recently, what has resonated really well with people is when I talk about the accessible door buttons and just doors in general being inaccessible. It's so funny. It sounds so random, but I noticed that this really interested people in August when I got back to college for the fall semester. And I posted a video of me not being able to open a door that led to my classroom down the hall. And it got 9.8 million views on TikTok. And this really started this conversation around this whole topic. And so I started making videos discussing like what my school ended up doing to solve that problem, but then also the issue of doors that actually are accessible with door buttons, but those door buttons breaking all the time. Mostly because people mistreat them by punching them or kicking them.
Yep.
And so this has become a huge conversation. It's so funny. Like my TikTok has so many videos about doors. It's so funny. But that has been a huge topic, and it's made its way around my college campus a lot too. I've had people come up to me like even like on a night out or during class or in the dining hall, and they're like, I think about accessibility so much more because of you. And
I love that.
I'm actually meeting with someone next week on the Student Government Association to talk about the door issues and doors, the buttons for the doors breaking a lot. And so it's really getting around at my college, which is great.
Sarah Todd, no joke, I wrote as my note, adapting door handles. I wish I knew that. Literally was my selection as well.
So funny.
100%. Because going to a university that are old buildings, we know this especially with our UK group that have buildings from 18th century, 19th century buildings. Those are old school door handles, and when I couldn't even feel a little bit of my hands, it was just never happening. That was never happening. I would have to wait and go, somebody will come on eventually.
That's what I do. Yeah.
Eventually someone will get here. So that was my choice as well. So I love that 9 million people agree with me on that
Yeah.
one as well. And then even too, we'll hear TikTok always in two cents. We'll always hear how phenomenal it is or how frustrating it is for people in the disability space. So do you have your favorite thing about the app and even your least favorite thing about the app that you wish could get improved more?
My favorite thing is how easy it is to reach people and like build communities. I've reached so many people. I mean, 9.8 million people in one video is wild to me. So I love how easy it is to reach people and then also start conversations about these things because I can reply to people's comments and questions with a video. So it's easy to kind of keep the conversation going in that way. Least favorite thing is definitely receiving rude comments, but that's not really with the app itself. That's with people using it. But that is my least favorite thing. But I've gotten really good at just, for the most part, just deleting them and blocking them and moving on. Because I remember a few years ago listening to a podcast and an influencer was saying that she used to reply to mean comments and then a lot of the time just only like nice comments. And she was like, no, I need to be putting my energy into the people who are being nice to me and who appreciate what I'm doing. And
True.
I think about that all the time now. And because she's so right. And so even though I do get a lot of rude comments, that's what I try to do. And sometimes it does give me an idea for a video because I'm like, wow, clearly this person doesn't understand this well enough. They might not seem willing to understand. So I might not make the video reply directly to them, but I can make a whole new video for other people that might not understand, but are actually willing to learn. And so that is one nice thing about that. But I always get a little worried when I get a video that's getting a lot of views because I'm like, I know there's going to be mean comments.
So true. I was going to say it is that duality that the best thing about it is that social networking and even people outside of the disability space feeling like they're now getting a peek at being more inclusive and understanding that it is quite easy to be more inclusive in just their day to day. But then the flip side is also that same social networking can just make people opinionated on things they don't know.
Exactly.
So it is that double-edged sword with TikTok. It's a very blunt edge of the sword.
Yes.
We've heard. But even for you, something I wanted to kind of touch on was how you use the app not only for educational purposes and teaching people different things or bringing that awareness, but you also do use it just sharing about your life. So you use it in that social way that when you started your TikTok, you weren't going, this is going to be an educational platform that I'm going to, you started TikTok like every young person that just, I want a TikTok account. So for you, how do you kind of make that divide in yourself of this is how I'm going to make different content? Or are you thinking of how am I going to project this to my audience that is quite diverse?
Yeah, I do like to share some personal insight into my life because that helps connect with people more. But I'm very intentional about what I do and do not share. I don't share my college. I don't talk about my family. I very much keep it like disability focused. And a lot of the times I'll get an idea for a video just by going about my day and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to film this and then post it. And that's what happens most of the time. And like, it might look like honestly that there's like so much planning into what I'm talking about, but a lot of the time it's really just like, OMG, this is a good video idea. So I'm going to make it and post it. So I do keep that boundary of like what I'm very intentionally not sharing because I know there's, you know, people don't need to know everything. And I even do that with disability too. There's some aspects of my disability I don't talk about. And I make sure that I keep true to those boundaries. But yeah, just the spontaneity of like finding an idea just by going about my day is generally where my content comes from. And yeah, in the beginning, I didn't know that I was downloading TikTok and this would happen. But once I realized that by initially posting a video sharing my disability story and it gaining millions of views, that this was something people were interested in, I was like, okay, I'm going to keep talking about it. And the types of videos I've posted has kind of changed over time. But it's all been disability related. And so that has been the main niche topic. And it's kind of changed as I've done different things in my life, like with college and those types of things.
Yeah, I love that too, because we'll always say with any kind of content, you always want to think of piquing your viewers' curiosity and not trying to educate what they might be ignorant in. That if you make them curious to learn more, you are kind of buy and hold, like educating them. But if you are going at it, going, I want you to learn and understand, it can then become frustrating to make different content because you're going to try to make it the most understandable and Cliff Notes version of everything. But like you said, it's making it natural, a part of your day. It's less of a, like you might know, oh, I'd like to post a certain amount of videos every month. And so it just kind of becomes natural to you to kind of fit that into your schedule. But like you said, to really do something that's still, you have your boundaries. And I think that's very important, especially for young people that like to overshare, I'll always say at times. To know to give yourself limits, I think is very important, because even professionally, then leaving university and getting jobs or doing work, it's nice to not have everything from your teenage years and 20 something years on the internet.
I'm very intentional with those boundaries. And I mean, I have some ideas in my head and some written down in a list of things that I want to talk about or film. But for the most part, the videos that do the best for me are the ones that are just very spontaneous, like I'm filming this and then posting it. And that's what works best.
Yeah, I love that. And even the last question I was going to ask you about this was especially with TikTok, a lot of times people will say that they feel like they have to either fit the mold of what is successful, or if they have one or two really popular videos, they then worry about replicating that experience multiple times. So for you, what would be kind of things that have worked for you to not feel like that pressure of fitting the mold, and then it's still enjoying it, because now this is a part of your brand, your work. This is part of the work that you've built for yourself. So how do you make sure it's still enjoyable, even though it is a job in a sense?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when I post something, I like don't even care how many views it gets. Like I just post it and I'll check back on it later. I make sure that I don't look at social media before going to class. So I wake up, I'm focused on school. I might look in the middle of the day, even if I have class later, but I try not to really be on it much. Lately, I've literally been going to bed at like 11 p.m., waking up at 8:30. Like I'm very intentional about not spending too much time on it while I'm at school. And that helps. And not worrying about the views helps, because honestly, with TikTok, like videos will show up on people's For You pages like months later even. And so like I might have a video that looks like it's not doing well, and then it has lots of views later. And also, it's not always even about that. Like sometimes that can be frustrating if you feel like you worked hard on something and it's not getting many views. But it's really more about like, okay, like people saw it and that's what matters. Like not every video has to get thousands of views, or hundreds of thousands of views. So that's kind of how I approach it, trying to keep it not taking over my life.
No, I think that's a very important point. And like you said, to not make the number the main thing you're focused on, that even if you put a lot of effort into making, we'll say that with reels, we put the ones we put the most time and energy into editing will not be the ones that get the most views. It's the random ones that we'll think of. So we'll always say, just enjoy making them. And if you think it's cool, still at the end, you'll go, you know what? Everyone's sleeping on this one because this is still my favorite. And I said, just think of it that way. At least for you, you're putting out content you always enjoy. And if the algorithm works in your favor, it works in your favor, as I say.
Exactly.
Sarah Todd, I had so much fun having you on our podcast. I want to make sure people can find you on all of the apps that you're on. So where can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, I've had so much fun too. It's been so great chatting with you. I'm mainly on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, of course. So it's just my full name on all of the platforms. It's Sarah with an H, Todd, and then Hammer, Hammer. So Sarah Todd Hammer is my handle, and that's where you can find me on the platforms. And then I also have a website, which is sarahtoddhammer.com.
Perfect, guys. We're going to have all of Sarah Todd's links in the description and the show notes. So if you're watching on YouTube or on any podcast platform, you can connect with Sarah Todd as well and give her a follow. And as always, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at InvisiYouth. And you can subscribe to InvisiYouth Chat Sessions on all podcast platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And give us that subscribe, like I taught you at the beginning. Have you hit that button by now? You should have. It's been a few minutes. It definitely helps. So everyone, thank you again, Sarah Todd, for being our guest today. And thank you everyone for listening and watching. And I will speak with you soon. Bye, everybody.